Welcome to this week's End of Days Update, coming to you from Cobbs Creek, Virginia. We had such a great time Sunday morning, Sunday night this last week, and same thing for tonight. If you're anywhere near Richmond, come be with us this evening. We'll be here for one more service tonight. We head back to Oklahoma, and then we go to Memphis this weekend. Sunday morning, Sunday night, we'll be at the Lord's Church there in Memphis, Tennessee. Come be with us. We'll have a great time. There's something about gathering. There's something about being together. You just get more while you're there. So come be with us and we'll have a great time. So we're coming to you every week to look at the different things that point to the coming of the Lord, and specifically the gathering of nations for the Ezekiel 38 war, because the second coming has tons of signs, but the rapture is signless. So we can look at certain things that happen just after the rapture, and I believe that the Ezekiel 38 war is the main thing. And when you see the nations literally coming together, things that were prophesied 2,700 years ago, literally right in front of our eyes are coming to pass. It's pretty remarkable. I've heard people say, well, I'd like to be in Bible days. Man, we're in Bible days right now. I mean, think about it. Paul talked about the baptism 12 times, coming of the Lord 52 times. For every one verse there is about the first coming, 8 times more about the second coming. So very documented. And the Lord wanted us to know, remember, he rebuked the crowd one time. He rebuked the Pharisees over and over and over. They needed to be rebuked. But what was he rebuking them about? He said, you can tell what the weather's going to be, but you don't know the hour of your visitation. So he wanted them to know. So with that, he had a whole tribe in the Old Covenant called the tribe of Issachar that had an understanding of the times. Why? To know what the children of Israel ought to do. So we get into these things so that we'll know what we're supposed to do. And I hear people say, well, you don't need to get into end times. That's just an escape theology. No, it's a hustle theology. You see the finish line, you run faster, not slower. So once we look at different things that are happening around Israel and we see that the Bible said these things would be happening just before Jesus comes, it pushes us to accelerate. So let's pick up with what's happening around Jerusalem. First of all, we go back to Gaza again. I'm in awe that you don't hear anything reported at all about how Hamas turns down every single ceasefire request. Not Israel, Hamas. Israel's even made a whole new back channel of aid to get to the Palestinians in Gaza, which I can't even imagine doing that after they tried to annihilate Israel October 7th. You got to remember, October 7th was the tantamount of 39 9/11s. And those people that came in and killed children and killed babies and killed women, burned them up, cut their heads off, they didn't provide any aid for any of those Israelis. So it makes me kind of laugh to think that Israel's doing things wrong. Where right now, Israel is systematically taking out the leaders of Hamas and Hezbollah. I mean, there was another airstrike yesterday, took out one of the second leaders in Hamas. No, not one nation alone says, look at Israel surgically attack the leaders and not have any other collateral damage. Yes, there's been collateral damage, but nothing like any other group would have, because Israel's so determined just to get the leadership of Hamas and Hezbollah. Okay, yesterday you had 80 rockets come down from Lebanon from Hezbollah. Hezbollah, they say they don't want a war right now, but they're doing everything they can to blow up northern Israel. Sirens went out all over the Galilee. My phone was just lit up with things that were happening. So you got an interesting time where you got nations saying they want to annihilate another nation, and then nations don't go to back them. I don't understand why we don't hear any verbiage from anybody else at all. If it was happening to Switzerland or Germany or Singapore, people would be going, this is crazy, this is 2024, how are you doing this? I mean, it's getting to the point where, you had an assassination attempt this last weekend on President Trump. The exact same day in New York City, you had a meteorite fly right down over the Statue of Liberty, showing that the liberty and freedom of our country is under attack. So it's been like that for many, many years, it looks like. But you're seeing a manifestation of a nation that was put in the earth to get missionaries all over the world. And there's such an attack even in this land. So more things are happening with Israel, though. You're going to see a lot more on the northern part, because you had even drones from Iran come down into Iraq and attack U.S. bases in the last couple of days. That's the first time they've done that since February. You had a lot of weird things happening with submarines, too. You had 3 United States submarines showing up in the South China Sea, and you had 1 U.S. submarine that got so close to China it freaked them all out. I kind of love that. I want to see them get nervous, because you have this happening. So many things are happening. You had members of the Knesset this last week go to where this stone quarry was. They're hewing out the stones for the third temple. Is that the wildest? That you got guys from the Knesset getting ready to help have a cornerstone for the building of the third temple. In the middle of that, you have the United States of America say we're relocating our nuclear missiles to different parts of Germany, and not just the regular ICBMs, but the hypersonic ones. Now, they said that to kind of put a stop to Russia coming over into NATO, because Russia's basically saying, we're going to do this. I'm intrigued by one of the staff members of Putin said, let's fire off a nuke so people will see that we mean business. So you have Israel surrounded on 7 fronts. You had the Houthis send 2 drones out this last week. The U.S. actually shot those drones down. But you have Israel completely surrounded on 7 fronts. You've got Russia saying things that are basically World War III. You've got generals all in our military saying we're already in World War III. And then you have North Korea firing ICBMs over the Japan Sea. So you got all these things. You say, well, that sounds like war, rumors of wars. Well, that's what the Bible said it'd be. But Jesus said, don't be troubled, don't be deceived. So he wants us happy, he wants us hopeful, and he wants us to lift up our heads. He said, when you see these things come to pass, lift up your heads, your redemption draws nigh. So he wants an anticipation and a joy that we're about to see him face to face. So when you see all these things, what do? We respond by going, Lord, how do we help our local pastor? How do we help our local church? What can I do to be more involved? Because this is all a setup for the King to come back. I'm intrigued when I hear people say, now all these signs you do every week, those have all happened before. No, these have never happened before. So let's run through some of them. There's a lot more things that are happening we'll get to at the very end. But the signs are so blatant, they push us to run faster. So you got number 1, Israel regathered as a nation, the fig tree budding. Number 2, Jerusalem won back. Jesus said the generation that sees those 2 events won't pass away till all is fulfilled. So how blessed are we to watch heaven say certain things and it come to pass in our lifetime? But you've got the Hebrew language restored. You got the Ethiopian Jews brought back. You got the fertility of the land of Israel. You got the revival of the Roman Empire. You had foxes show up on the Temple Mount. You had fish show up in the Dead Sea. You had the Dead Sea turn blood red where Sodom and Gomorrah was last fall on the Day of Atonement. That's crazy. So you had the ritual baths around the Temple Mount fill up with water. You had the 5 red heifers that came from America. They were sent they labeled them as service animals. I don't know how that works, but that's the only way they could get them there. The amazing thing was that they didn't have their ears clipped because of COVID, so they're the first ones that don't have a flaw. They've already started clipping the ones right now. So the amazing thing about those red heifers is they have to be used from year 2 and 3, and that's exactly where they are right now. So you have sign after sign after sign. You've got Russia rebuilt the archway for Baal worship in Palmyra. That's where the Tower of Babel was. That's a big deal because the Talmud says that's the last sign you'll see before the Messiah comes. So you have men will be lovers themselves. You have selfie sticks. You got 172 different species of predatory birds. Amazing, because after the Ezekiel 38 war, God calls on the fowl of the air to clean the land up. So you had the cleanup crew there then. 7 years later at the Battle of Armageddon, God calls on the fowl of the air to clean the earth up, clean the land up. So they got to eat something, and they're there now, 172 different species. So you got fish in position, foxes showing up on the Temple Mount, birds in position. Russia went into Crimea, went into the Ukraine. Why is that a big deal? The Bible says they're going to come from the north, go straight north of Israel, and you got the Ukraine. So you have all these physical, tangible signs that are pretty remarkable that we can't ignore. And once you get into them, it even pushes you more like, oh my God, Jesus is just about to come. So we have so many signs we could go through. I think our book has about 80 signs, the one End Times Made Easy. And we put some charts in there from Clarence Larkin so you can glance at it and learn how easy it is to see where you are in end time. So you have all these signs, but then you go to signals. You got signals. What were the signals? You got blood red moons. The Bible said the planets would be for signals for us. And Psalm says the heavens declare the glory of God. So a few years ago, you had blood red moons on when? Passover and Tabernacles. Pretty remarkable. The heavens were going, I died for you, I'm coming back. I died for you, I'm coming back. When's the last time you had 4 in a row like that on Passover and Tabernacles? 1967, when Jerusalem was won back. 1948, when Israel was made a nation. And 1492, at the Edict of Expulsion, when the Jews were kicked out of Spain. God raised up Columbus to sail the ocean blue. In 1492, what did he find? He found a safe harbor for the Jews called the United States of America. So remarkable to have signs, have signals. Everything's pointing to the return. I mean, you get into this, you got the Bethlehem star. When Jesus was born, you had Jupiter, Regulus, Venus come together. I mean, Regulus did retrograde motion, actually crowned Jupiter. I mean, that's amazing. What was the constellation when Jesus was born? Virgo. He's born of a virgin. This last year, NBC Nightly News, we have a celestial event. You've got Jupiter, Regulus, Venus coming together. What was the constellation? Leo. He's the lion of the tribe of Judah. So, folks, we are watching the earth get ready for the setup for the entrance of the King. So let's make ready everything we can to do everything we can to get the will of God wrought. Let's help our local church, help get the message out, and accelerate as we see the finish line. We've got all these things that literally show us the finish line. Let's do what we're called to do. Look at the race that you're running right now. You get to be a voice. God's raised up the believer to be a voice that Jesus is just about to come. Soon, we'll be so glad we did. We'll see his eyes as a flame of fire, feet like unto fine brass, voice of many waters. Wow, we're going to see the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. So all these things are happening because there's a setup, the author of life about to come back. So we'll come back next week. We'll look if there's any more. I didn't get into all the stuff about asteroids, but there's a lot of stuff about asteroids, meteorites coming close to us. The one that hit the other day in New York City, they saw it after the fact. So it will be intriguing that we can see some before the fact because the King's about to come. Have a blessed, wonderful week. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Thanks for joining us today at the End of Days Update. If you'd like to be notified every time there's a new post, just go to the EDU at josephmorris.com and subscribe to receive email alerts. If these posts and updates have been a blessing to you, please consider making a one-time donation to help get the message out, or even becoming a monthly partner with Joseph Morris Ministries. Thanks again for tuning in to the EDU, and we'll see you next week.